Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your husband's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about what to do when you don't trust your husband. My guest, Kelsey, didn't trust her husband, and their arguments sometimes lasted for weeks. She worried they were just one argument from divorce, and she didn't want to go through that a third time. When she did two specific things differently on the verge of an argument, everything changed. Today, she is so grateful to be married to an honorable and faithful man that she can't stop smiling. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. But first, let's talk about what to do if you don't trust your husband. It's terrible to feel like you can't trust the man you married, whether it's that you don't trust him to be faithful, to take care of the kids, or maybe to be responsible with money. It just feels bad. It means that you don't feel heard and you don't feel seen, because if he was listening and he cared, then he would listen to your concerns and try to support you by doing the things that you want him to do so that you could trust him. And that's depressing, because if you can't get him to straighten up, well, it's pretty hopeless that you'd ever be able to trust him, especially if he keeps letting you down and reinforcing that he doesn't deserve your trust. How's that ever going to improve, right? But what if, instead of asking him to do things so that you can trust him, you turned the whole thing on its head by deciding to trust him first? I know that sounds crazy, especially if you have evidence that he doesn't deserve your trust. But another way to think of trust is something you decide to give. And what's counterintuitive, but also exciting about that, is that people tend to rise to your expectations of them. So when you demonstrate that you have faith in them, they feel the full weight of the responsibility on their shoulders in the trust that you're giving them. Like in the movie The Horse Whisperer, when Robert Redford invites young Scarlett Johansson to drive, and she says, oh, she's not old enough and she can't because, for her hurt leg. And there's plenty of evidence he should not trust her to drive that truck. But he decides to trust her anyway. And poor, terrified Scarlett rises to the occasion and presses the gas and makes the truck lurch forward. And it's not pretty, but it works. She is driving. And next, he tells her to turn the truck down this dirt road, and she says she can't, but she does. And finally, he puts his hat over his eyes, and he says he's going to get some rest while she drives, which prompts her to say, I can't again. But he points out that she is driving already. So that's not even the question. Had he invited her to drive with the expectation that she couldn't do it, or she was going to hurt herself or hurt him or crash the truck, that outcome would have been very different. When he decided to trust her, he also found reasons to believe it would turn out okay, like that she was mature enough, that she wanted to succeed and just needed some encouragement to stretch into doing something new and scary. What a gift, right? For her to receive that. Anyone who's ever taught a teenager to drive knows how terrifying that is. But Robert Redford was confident enough for both of them. You could decide to do the same thing with your husband and give him your trust. That means not expecting him to fail, but expecting him to succeed. So gathering not evidence of what's wrong with him, but the evidence of what's right about him, even if that feels very sparse. And what I love about the scene from The Horse Whisperer is the illustration that although we're often taught that trust is earned, trust is actually something you can decide to give. Something big is happening here on the Laura Doyle campus, and you are invited. Hundreds of women have become experts on the 6 intimacy skills and transformed their marriages by becoming certified Laura Doyle relationship coaches who live their purpose, have more intimacy, and earn for their families. In my free masterclass, Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy, How to Have All Three and Help Others Do the Same, I share directly from our popular relationship coach training and certification course about the number one most important qualification for becoming a successful relationship coach. I also reveal the indispensable first step to having a passionate, peaceful relationship and how to share it with other women. I explain about why our coaches have an unfair advantage over other relationship coaches and counselors. And I go step by step through our proven coaching curriculum and why it's so effective in saving marriages and empowering coaches. Register today for purpose, prosperity, and intimacy. Have all three and help others do the same at lauradoyle.org/purpose. That's lauradoyle.org/purpose. My guest, Kelsey, didn't trust her husband, and their arguments sometimes lasted for weeks. She worried they were just one argument from a divorce and didn't want to go through that a third time. When she did two specific things differently on the verge of an argument, everything changed. Today, she is so grateful to be married to an honorable and faithful man. She can't stop smiling. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on the Empowered Wife podcast. Welcome. I can't wait to hear your whole story.
Hey, Laura. I can't believe that I'm here sitting with you looking at you. This is so crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. You're here to do a victory lap so I can do my happy dance with you. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But before we get to that, though, let's talk about what was happening in the bad old days.
Yes. Okay. So I actually have to start from the beginning of my marriage in order for everything to just make sense before I jump to the part of how crazy I was. That's how I look at it in the past. But before I ever met my husband, I made this list for the universe of all the traits and all the qualities that I wanted in my future husband. And because I knew if I wanted something, I knew I had to get my story straight on exactly what it was that I needed. So I made this list. And the scary part is right after I made this list, my husband appeared and he had every single quality that was on that list. He actually was everything that I wanted. He was every single quality and trait that I manifested, and actually even more. So since the beginning, my husband and I, we were just completely inseparable. We were so over the top in love, and we wanted to spend every single second together. And when we were apart, we were always calling or we were texting each other. And we just couldn't keep our hands off of each other. But unfortunately, also in the beginning of our relationship, because he and I are both in the military, we were separated for 1.5 years. I lived in Korea and he was in Washington. But in that separation, we did everything that we could to make it work. This separation, not only being able to wake up next to him or fall asleep next to him every night, it was extremely tough for me. I felt really alone. Mm-hmm. And every single possibility or possible insecurity that I had, it just came to the surface. I would obsess over what he was doing throughout the day. I couldn't think of anything else. I always assumed that he's talking to other women. I would question him constantly of who was going to be where he was. And I also would time, I know it sounds crazy, but I would time how long he would be somewhere if he told me he was going to be at a certain event. And it seemed like all I could do was not focus on myself. I completely lost who I was. I always felt like I was never enough for him. And I lived in this constant, scary state of fear of him leaving me. I honestly would push him away.
Just sounds incredibly painful. Like, what a hard time this is you were going through.
It was. When I would push him away, I just honestly, each night I would cry myself to sleep. And I would try to figure out why I ended up choosing this man. Why did I choose someone who hurt me so much? And why does he not love me as much as I love him? And I honestly, myself, I felt like the total package of what a man was looking for. And I felt like he was taking advantage of me. So I had this story in my head that he was just another man that I chose poorly because I fall in love too fast. And I kept thinking, in my head, I had this funny story about how it was Demi Moore, how I was just going to be this woman who had husband after husband because I could not get my life together. So I was in this crazy vicious cycle where I couldn't really control my emotions. And I felt like because I was so far away from him, I couldn't save our marriage. I was just stuck in this crazy hurricane of emotions. And while I was in that crazy hurricane, he was going out and drinking with his friends, and he would turn his phone off just so he didn't have to deal with my barrage of like nosy, angry texts and like me timing him, what's going on. So I would go into work each morning with this huge emotional hangover. And the worst part is I didn't know how to stop obsessing over him. I just didn't know how. But after my assignment was over in Korea, we were actually finally able to live together. And I thought that this was going to be the end of my emotional suffering. So once we were able to live together, all of those nights that he didn't answer my phone calls, all those text messages that he didn't answer, all those times I would time, he would go somewhere. He was actually with another woman that he worked with and spent time with outside of work while I was in Korea. He even introduced her to his family. So all of the mistrust that I already had in him, it just quadrupled. And I told him that I don't want to be with him. I took my ring off, I threw it at him, and I said that we were through.
And so your worst fear came true. Like everything you were thinking that you were worried about, it was valid.
Yes, it was so scary, Laura. Like I literally manifested all my thoughts that were going through my head. It showed up in my life. Everything that I was thinking, it just happened right in front of me. And I was so like hurt and overcome with sadness. And the lowest part was when I got to a point where I really wanted to ask myself if I want to be on this earth anymore. Oof. And I really honestly felt like I didn't have a purpose. So in some sick, twisted way, I kind of wanted him to realize what he did to me. In our relationship, he has a son, and I was being a horrible example of a mother with my drinking and my emotional mood swings. And we argued in front of him all the time. And I felt like I was doing him a favor in some way of not being in his life anymore.
Ooh, wow. Okay. I want to pause here because first of all, that sounds devastating. It sounds crushing. But I also am really noticing that the way you say it is so accountable, Kelsey. You're like, I manifested exactly what I had been focusing on. This big, huge fear, your worst nightmare came true. And I hear you saying, and I did that. I made that happen. Do I have that right?
Yes, exactly. I'm a huge believer from everything that I've read from your words that your thoughts become reality. What you insist persists. So it happened before me and I didn't know how to handle it.
So you are watching your life go off a cliff and you can't stop it. And part of you is aware that this is what you're doing. It sounds like, even though you had no idea where the brakes were to make this stop. And then as your marriage was totally falling apart, it sounds like even your desire to be alive was called into question. And you even thought, boy, my stepson would be better off. This is a really low moment, such a painful moment.
Yeah.
Devastating. Wow. So, okay, so what happened? So he's introduced the other woman to his family, and you're kind of thinking about ending your life.
Yeah. So we would get into an argument every day. And all of it, I would just constantly bring the other woman up because I needed to know every single disgusting detail about her and why it happened. I spent so much time on the internet searching for the pain. I kept asking myself what she had that he was so attracted to that I didn't have. I asked him questions that I knew would hurt me, like if he thought she was more attractive than I was, and what she had then that I didn't have. I spent so much time and effort looking this woman up, and in the end, I never felt better once I found that answer. And it got so bad that he actually gave me her phone number. And he told me that if I didn't trust him, that I should call her. So he didn't think I actually would call her, but my crazy personality, I called her. And when I did call her, I kind of felt like, of course, it didn't make me feel better, but I was getting lies from both ends. I just honestly, I felt so betrayed, and I demanded that we go to counseling.
Yeah.
And counseling was such a huge waste of time, and the counselor ripped open so many emotional wounds, and it seemed like the only thing. It honestly felt like she was making everything so much worse, and she would hop back and forth on whose side she was, and I would take these emotional notes. I would always write down something in my phone on my notepad of what he did, just so I could bring it up to her to show that he's the crazy one and it's not me.
Oh,
But when we
it
realized
sounds
that,
like the setup was to pit you against each other, to
yeah,
be able to point fingers and say, no, he's worse or she's worse. And the counselor would kind of validate that. Is that right?
yeah,
Awful. Awful.
yeah.
Wow. I'm so sorry
Um,
you went through that.
yeah, it was a really crazy time, and I'm so glad that I can finally say I'll never have another counselor in my life. Um, but when I realized that counseling wasn't helping, I thought at that point in our marriage that maybe a vacation, like getting out of the house, could make light of our situation. And when we went on this amazing vacation, he planned this amazing trip. He went out of his way and we went to Italy. And I ruined the entire trip. I ended up telling him it was over again the first night that we were there. I remember sleeping on the cold, hard kitchen floor in a tiny Airbnb. And I knew that night when I was on the cold, hard floor that he would come in and pick me up and rescue me and put me in the warm, cozy bed that he was in. But instead, he left me there. I laid there on the floor and I thought, I made a mistake because my husband is none of the qualities that I made on my list, and he doesn't love me. But that's the night that actually changed my entire life because I knew I needed to change something, and I needed to find a way to change my husband into the man that I could trust. And I took my phone, I Googled how to save my marriage. And I found The Empowered Wife. And I listened to the entire book on Audible that night. And it's like I was living through a different set of eyes. I was looking at him differently. And this entire time, I thought my husband doesn't love me, but I realized I was controlling so much of his life that he couldn't even breathe.
Wow. So you're on the cold, hard floor, putting on new perspectives. And
Spectacles.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I mean, the way you tell this story now, it sounds like you're on the cold, hard floor. Um, you're very accountable the way you tell it. Like I made myself sleep on the cold, hard floor instead of being in the warm bed with my husband. And but it was the breakdown before the breakthrough.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's exciting. Okay. So, all right. So you had these new perspectives. So then what?
Yeah. So as soon as I was able to view things differently, as soon as I learned the 6 intimacy skills, I realized I had a lot of cleaning up to do on my end. I apologized to him for not trusting him and constantly questioning him. He did so much for me that I honestly did not even thank him for, and I wasn't thankful for. I expressed my gratitude to him for being such an amazing husband. I started realizing that he actually does love me. Um, and he loved me so much, and he was showing it to me the entire time. But I honestly was just too busy trying to change him that I didn't even realize it. And I gave so much oxygen to this other woman that didn't deserve my time and energy. And I stopped asking about her and I acted as if she didn't even exist. I stopped checking his phone. And he now feels safe to leave it out around me. He would always take it with him. But now he leaves it out. And I love that he does that because he can just leave it out. But I honestly had no idea how crazy I was until I read The Empowered Wife. And I put so much pressure on our marriage. I made my husband feel smothered and my insecurities surfaced. I pushed him into this direction that was so harmful. And it harmed our marriage. And I made him feel like it wasn't safe to even open up to me. And he couldn't even tell me certain things that he was going through because of how jealous of a person I was. And I relied on him to make me happy. I would say things such as, if you did this, then I wouldn't worry so much. Or if you
Like what
did
kinds of
this,
things? What kinds of things did you want him to do?
I wanted him to flip his phone over on the counter, just to see, because I felt like, he was hiding something.
That way
Um,
you would know if somebody was texting him that you didn't want to text him, right? That would be,
I
and if he wasn't getting a text, then you would be happy. That's the deal?
exactly. There
Yeah.
was so much control I had over this, things that I had no control of, and
Yeah.
it ate me up. And the sad part is, he would tell me that he feels like he can never make me happy, which I now realize that I at that time I honestly couldn't even make myself happy. And once I did have the skills, I realized that I had a paper of my own and I was able to focus and figure out how to make myself happy without relying on him anymore. And now I honestly feel like I am enough. And I honestly feel like he's incredibly lucky to have me.
Wow. Okay, I have a couple of questions. So one question, because I think it's such a remarkable thing, right? We heard how devastated you were about this other woman, and then you sleep on the hard floor, you read a book, and then all of a sudden you're apologizing to him. Like that's kind of a big leap, right? I mean, you were the one that was wronged in this relationship, right? He's the one that did the bad thing. So how did you get to the part where you wanted to apologize to him?
That's a great question, Laura, because that apology was actually for myself. even though I was saying it to my husband, I was apologizing and giving myself so much grace because I was becoming the person that I did not want to be. So, me saying that apology to my husband was all the words to me that I needed to hear because I was going down this really dark path that I don't I didn't want to go down. So that apology was every single word was to myself and saying it out loud to my husband. It was an extremely vulnerable part of my life. And I've talked to him about this before, and he said that was one of the changing moments of our marriage because of how vulnerable I was at that moment. I'm not a really vulnerable person, but after learning these skills, I'm going to change my middle name to vulnerable.
Wow, Kelsey, I love this. And that's right. You're in the military. And that's we don't think I think when we think of people in the military, vulnerability is not the word that comes to mind. And
Yeah.
you're protecting the country in another country. And so that you're saying this apology was for you. So it wasn't like, I mean, I guess there's I think a common thing you hear, like people will, like somebody will say, yeah, my husband cheated on me. And then their response is like, oh, well, he doesn't deserve you, or you deserve better, or you should divorce him. I mean, and so for you to apologize, it's just so counterintuitive. I mean, were people saying that to you? Did anyone know what was going on? Were people telling you to divorce him?
Um, with That's a great question. I think in that time, my friends, I felt like were already ahead of me. They knew um, the kind of person I was, and they knew how amazing my husband was. So when they heard what was happening, and after I learned the skills, um, they really wanted me, honestly. I guess I have a really great group of friends because they wanted me to continue to fix it. I knew if I had bad advice, I would probably follow that bad advice, but I had really great advice from your skills. But choosing to apologize, um, honestly, was the best decision that I've ever made for our marriage.
Wow. I mean, so it must have been pretty terrifying, a scary thing to say.
It was. I didn't even know how to apologize. And I apologize all the time now. And when my husband hears it, um, sometimes it falls on deaf ears. But now that I realize that these apologies are for myself, it doesn't fall on deaf ears because it's really for me and it's helping me because I'm holding myself accountable.
Wow. I certainly see how accountable you are. It's really remarkable. And so this is your secret to how you became so accountable. And it sounds like, I mean, you sound also incredibly empowered because regardless of how he responds to these apologies, they work in that you hear them. The person who needs to hear them the most hears them. And that there's some kind of healing in that for you.
Absolutely. And I also have to say, SFPs were a huge deal as well.
About fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So spouse fulfilling prophecies. My husband, I leave I leave post-it notes, and I got this idea from him because he leaves post-it notes for me all the time. Um, but I took that because he would always write this sweet note now. But now I write on them SFPs, spouse fulfilling prophecies that say, "You're such an honorable man that would that I love that would never do anything to harm our family." And I write that down, and each word means so much to me. And I know that he takes it to heart. And it's something that I now manifested into our marriage.
Incredible. So the man who cheated on you while you were out of the country, serving the country, is now this honorable man. He's not that
Yeah,
man that's a cheater.
no.
Wow. Incredible. Okay, so now when you talk about these apologies sometimes landing on deaf ears, that first one, it sounds like really landed. Like, how did he respond to that when he said it was a pivotal moment? How did he respond in the moment?
He he looked like his head fell off his body. um it was a really crazy moment because man, these skills are just so powerful. Like as soon as you implement one, your life just completely changes. But he heard this apology and his whole body just looked like it was taken from earth. Like like it just softened and he was like, wow, who is this woman? And I was like, whoa, who is this woman?
So both of your heads are exploding in this moment, right? So, I mean, it sounds, I know it was scary and it was very vulnerable, but it just sounds like an incredible moment of like, yeah, personal triumph and accomplishment is kind of how I hear it. Is that how
Yeah,
it felt?
exactly. I knew there was an answer out there when I was at my dark place, and I didn't know when I was going to find it, and it was going to come at the right time, and it came exactly at the right time. And when I had that answer, it changed my life so much. And I just want to say, you have changed my life so much. I am so thankful for you, Laura.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you so much. I'm so happy we found each other because this is very inspiring to me to get to hear this incredible story. I mean, you don't hear stories. I don't hear stories like this too much anywhere else about a marriage being saved after such a big breakdown, right? Especially when that was your worst fear.
Mm.
Uh, and I think it's just, especially to hear, yeah, the level of accountability that you're bringing is just phenomenal. So besides the apologies, which is, I mean, that's a huge thing. So not to dismiss that, that's gigantic. But what else did you start to do differently than what you had been doing?
So the apologies, the spouse
Oh,
fulfilling
spouse fulfilling
prophecy, I felt
prophecy.
like that was a great pivotal thing that it's funny because I said I wanted to change him, and all of these things these the apology, the spouse fulfilling prophecy, they're all for me. Another huge thing was duct tape because I remember thinking there's no way that we can get through one day without getting into an argument. And it was because I was putting my thoughts and what I thought how the situation should go because he should do this because that's how it should be done. So after implementing duct tape, it has stopped all of our arguments. And when we do argue, it's crazy because it's not like how it was before, where I would sleep in our guest bedroom and we would ignore each other and act like we didn't exist for a couple of days or a week. Um, but it lasts really quickly. And he's actually the one who comes to me and apologizes now.
He
um,
apologizes now.
yeah, and it's crazy. But I absolutely do apologize back. He's it's just so wild to me. But duct tape has changed as well in our marriage. Just stopping what I'm going to say before I create this huge disaster.
And that feels like empowerment too, right? Just to be able to have the option, I guess, to not throw a monkey wrench into your marriage in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You shared an incredible story with me about using your duct tape and saying, I hear you. I think that on the precipice of an argument.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So using duct tape has just completely stopped the arguments. But not only has I hear you when he's saying something, just completely stopped our arguments as well. It's changed my relationship with my parents. It's changed my relationship with my coworkers. It's changed my relationship um, with my stepson. Like, it's just those three tiny words of I hear you that just stops me from giving my own personal biased opinion, and just letting them know that I provide a safe space for them to land.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. How old is your stepson?
So he's 9.
Wow. So it sounds like your
Yeah,
relationship with him is entirely different.
it is so different. And man, these skills have saved my relationship with him because I it was going towards a deep end and I didn't even picture um, my marriage having a future. I didn't picture me having a relationship with my stepson in the future. So yeah, these skills I use every single day in every single relationship. And I honestly, another SFP I use with my stepson is that he just wants to be a man, and I have to relinquish control of what my husband does, how he raises his son. So, yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like you're bringing a lot of respect to your husband's role of showing your stepson how to be a man, which would be kind of hard for you to do, probably. Uh, yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot more uh, connection and emotional safety in all these relationships.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know you were telling you shared how you had said use duct tape and then said I hear you in a particular argument with your husband. It really changed the way he responded to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, tell us the details about that.
So in that moment, we moved into our new house. This was when we moved into our new home that we're in now in Virginia. And I remember we were sitting on the floor. We didn't have our couch, we didn't have our furniture. I can't remember the exact reason why we were arguing, but I knew that this argument was the exact same argument that we've had every single day that was going to make me sleep in another room. And I honestly, I used duct tape and I said, when he would say something, this is this, and he would always say the same thing. I feel like I just can't ever make you happy. And my original response would be, why do you feel like you can't make me happy? I feel like you don't love me. And I would go on and on why I feel like he doesn't love me. And in the past, just bring up, but I just said, I hear you. And that night, even though we didn't have furniture, we fell asleep on the floor together in our new house. And we cuddled that night. And that night, using duct tape and I hear you, it has changed all of our future arguments because we still argue, of course, but they're not like the old arguments. They're just short ones. And like you say in your book, my husband is the same. He has the same reaction. He'll just look at me sometimes and say, what's going on? And then I'll quickly reroute and just pull a skill out.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you're using your power to create some nice intimacy and connection, regardless of the circumstances. And I mean, what a great before and after, right? It's like a home renovation picture or something. It's like before we would have had a Cold War for a week and pretended each other didn't exist. And then, um, but just choosing to listen. It sounds like you spent the night cuddling um, it sounds like he's been more vulnerable with you too, as a result of you creating that safe space.
Yes, he has. He's never been able to tell me um, how his work day went. I honestly now don't ask him how his work day went because I have my own stuff to worry about. But he tells me about these things, and I love it I because I don't consistently question. I was a huge questioner. And when I would ask these questions, he knew that they came across the wrong way as I don't trust you when I would ask these questions. So he tells me a lot of things. He tells me how his day went at work. He tells me his dilemmas that he's currently going through, whether or not he should continue to be in the military. And he comes to me and I'm so happy that I've created this safe place to land. And sometimes I hear things that might be tough, but I I just look at myself and I kind of give myself a pat on the back because I'm like, wow, I'm able to listen to this with a new set of ears and perspectacles, as you call it. And I just see how much I've grown.
That is something. So you're really able to see your own growth and kind of celebrate that. And just, it sounds like such a joyful feeling to have this superpower. You have a superpower now, right, Kelsey, where you can
Right.
listen without commenting or trying to control or being helpful or giving instructions on what he should do. And because of that, you're connected. You two are connected. You enjoy intimacy. Yeah, amazing. Well, what is your marriage like now?
So he definitely feels safe to talk to me about any and everything that's going on in his life. He looks at me and he tells me how much he loves me, and how much I mean to him. And when he says those things, I I feel it. I feel every single word that he says, and I feel it with my whole heart. And the sticky note thing, he leaves sticky notes around the house, and it just leaves me with the biggest smile on my face because it tells me, he writes on there how lucky he is to be with such an amazing woman. And in our marriage, we had a baby together. We made this a beautiful baby girl, and he is just the most amazing and loving dad and husband. And I like to say that she's here today because she derived from the six intimacy skills. So I like to call her the seventh skill. um,
I
so
love
so
it.
now we're working on an eighth skill.
Oh, you're gonna
um,
have another skill. I love that. Oh my, we need to get her like a little onesie that's like skill. I've got skills or something. Yeah. Right.
but our
Wow.
man is so amazing, Laura. And it's like his hands have magnets and they're attracted to me. And I literally, like, some nights I can't even make dinner because his hands are always around me. He's behind me and his arms are around me and he's like constantly squeezing my butt. But what I really love now is just how much he loves me. And I can't believe that I'm with the man of my dreams and he's still everything that was on my list that I made and even more. And he's the person I want to be with that I can picture now in my future until the end of time. And it's so crazy because I wanted so badly in the beginning to change him this entire time, um, into somebody that I could trust, that could make me feel secure. But it's like I now realize that I was the one who needed to change this entire time.
I mean, do you think he has changed?
That's a great question, Laura.
You've
I,
definitely changed, but has he changed also or not?
he is still the honorable, amazing, handsome, sexy man that I met the first day. But what has changed is our arguments. Is quick to he's quick to end them. He just knows that it's not going to go anywhere, that I'm a different person. So what has changed is his reactions to how I am, really. So he's able to open up more, and he hasn't changed from the same man, but he has changed to the way that I have changed, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So he was always a great guy. He was always an honorable and faithful man
He
that
was.
you could trust. And the illusion was that you couldn't. And you've kind of kicked that to the curb now, which
Yeah.
is just remarkable. I mean, what would you say to a woman who is where you were, where she's feeling a lot of jealousy and insecurity, which is just punishing, right? Just a lonely, awful place to be. And she, if she wants to save her marriage, uh, but she's just doesn't think she can trust the man she's married to. What's your, she wants what you have now, where his hands have magnets in them. She can barely make dinner because he's always squeezing her butt and has his arms around her. What's your tip for her?
My tip would be to really just change your point of view of him. Um, my my spouse fulfilling prophecy was that he is a cheater. He's going to cheat on me, and I manifested that. But now that my SFP, my spouse fulfilling prophecy, is that he's an honorable man that would never do anything to hurt our family. It's a completely different game. It's just a different game. It's a game changer for sure. Self-care honestly has also changed my life tremendously. I'm a huge self-help junkie. One thing that I've learned is with like older people, the one thing that they regret in their life is um, not helping others. So I actually realized that that's exactly how I feel. So one of my friends who was in coach training with me, she said that she does Meals on Wheels. And I was like, that is an amazing idea. So I started doing Meals on Wheels and I started delivering meals to these people that I love having conversations with. Since my grandpa's not alive, I get to speak with other people's grandpas and grandmas that I just I love so much. And my husband sees how much joy that brings me, and he asked to do it with me. So he takes days off of his work and helps me sometimes. So definitely self-care, finding out what honestly truly brought me happiness, because I lost that part of me. It was so lost and gone. But I had to figure out what brought me that happiness. And definitely self-care brought that out of me, the goddess of fun and light.
I love that you love talking to other people's grandpas. It brings tears to my eyes because it's so loving. And I hear this is just that's a source of unmitigated joy for you. This is why you do it, because it makes you feel happy. And I think you're also bringing them joy too. And that's why it feels so fun to you. And
Yeah.
what a cool self-care thing. And it magnetizes your husband too. He wants to spend the day with you. He wants to take off work, spend the day with you.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, let me go be with Kelsey while she's all smiley, happy, talking to grandpas, talking to other people's grandpas all day. So I love that. And it sounds like this has been how, part of how you've become empowered to to use the duct tape to create these spouse fulfilling prophecies is by finding your paper, getting back on it, and
Mhm.
fixing it up real nice.
Yes, absolutely.
And so okay, so you're a mom now. Well, you were a mom before. You were a stepmom, and now you have your daughter also, and maybe another baby coming along. How do you think this is impacting you as a mother?
Oh my gosh. I love this question because before I didn't know what my daughter's life was going to be like. I knew what my stepson's life was going to be like, and it was going to be horrible without the skills. But now that I have these skills, I picture us having these amazing holidays where we're sitting around the table and they want to come to our house for Thanksgiving and they want to come to our house for Christmas. Before I really honestly couldn't picture that. But now my husband and I, we say that we want to live somewhere, we want to buy land and we want to have them live close to us. And I love that so much. And the fact that I'm raising a daughter who will have these skills is it. Oh man, Laura, I honestly, you created so many miracles around the world, and I can't even thank you enough.
That is exciting to thank you. Thank you, by the way. But it's exciting to get to raise a little girl with the skills from the go, right? She's gonna grow up knowing how to express her desires and
Yeah,
focus on what she wants and yeah, use duct tape or yeah, get back on her paper, it sounds like. So how cool that is exciting to be able to pass it on to the next generation. So I love that you're doing that.
thank you.
What what do you think you would say if you could go back and talk to yourself from before, maybe yourself, while you're in Korea and just suffering, just lonely, crying yourself to sleep every night? What would you say to her that you know now?
I would say you are going to be saved. I felt so hopeless and alone. And I knew my marriage was not going to survive if I kept showing up the way that I was, as insecure and jealous. And I knew there was an answer out there on how I could start fixing things. Um, but I would say the 6 intimacy skills are the answer, and it's going to change your life, and it's going to change your daughter's life. It's going to change your relationship with your friends and your coworkers and your family. And I would say get off of that cold, hard kitchen floor because why are you doing that to yourself? Your man's in a warm bed and you're on the cold, hard floor. But the intimacy skills are going to change your life, is what I would have said for sure.
Wow. Yeah, he's in a warm bed and it turns out he loves you, wants to make you happy. Yeah, I love it. It's such an impressive transformation. What about training to become a coach? How did that impact? You were already on this trajectory of really, you're like just an exceptionally good student, I feel like, of the skills. How did training to become a coach impact things for you?
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite part was having a coach. I had an amazing coach, Coach Sue, that helped me every single session. I re-listen to those because these things happen and they come up again in life of me um, becoming jealous. But the whole process from beginning to end, everything is laid out so magically. And I wasn't sure, honestly, if it was going to be something that was worth the investment, but you can't put a money amount on how it's changed my life and my family's life and my daughter's life, my son's life. And this whole program of coach training, it was another self-care for me because it's another thing that I love to help people. So now I get to continuously do that for the rest of my life. And that honestly it makes me so happy because that's my passion. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I want to, like, when I hear a woman talking about their husband or man bashing or saying they want to go through a divorce, I wish I had a bag full of your books, because it's changed me so much. And it's, I can't thank you enough.
Kelsey, amazing. And what about so two questions. One, what about the other woman? Like, is she still in the picture?
So the funny thing is so we're moving, and we're moving back to the state where it happened. She lives there, and I haven't even brought it up with my husband. And it's not even a factor because I see our family and how much it means to my husband. And I know that there is nothing in this entire world that is going to top that. If without these skills, I would have asked him a whole slew of questions, or not even said that we should move back to where he wants to, because after learning the skills, I said, I support you in whatever decision you make for our family. But it's actually, it kind of gives me a little bit anxiety, but I know that I'm not going to be that same woman that I was before. And I completely, honestly trust my husband.
It's such a superpower. Like, it sounds unreal. It sounds amazing. But getting to hear your whole story, it seems like it's very real for you. And I just want to congratulate you. And actually, I'd like to give you this wife award today, because
thank you.
There it is, best wife. Because you've earned it, right? You deserve this award because you have done an incredible job of staying on your own paper, having the courage to change the things that you could in your marriage, and thereby transforming your whole family and changing your life, your husband's life, your stepson's life, and now your daughter's life and your future children's lives. And it's something I admire so much. And I just feel so inspired to get to hear from your lips exactly how it's done, how you did it, for other women to get to hear how they can do it too. So congratulations.
Thank you, Laura.
Well, yeah, this is going to give me a spring in my step for at least the next few days. So thank you so much for telling us the whole story. It's been just magical and wonderful. Thank you, Kelsey.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laura.
Here's a shortcut for getting on one of those group coaching calls that you've heard so much about on this podcast without having to commit to a membership. You ready? Be one of the first to get my brand new Empowered Wife workbook and journal, a guided journey to transforming your marriage with the 6 intimacy skills. Pick it up at the store, any store, and upload a picture of the receipt to lauradoyle.org/journal-bonus. It's lauradoyle.org/journal-bonus. We'll give you the secret handshake so you can join the call on July 27th. And who knows, maybe you'll get coaching from a master relationship coach, or you can just lurk in the back of the Zoom call if you prefer. My brand new Empowered Wife workbook and journal includes a 30-day routine to kickstart your practice of the 6 intimacy skills. It's filled with powerful questions and exercises to make them stick and make your marriage last and thrive. So get your Empowered Wife workbook and journal now at your favorite retailer so we can put your name on the guest list for a group coaching call with a master relationship coach. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, I'll reveal how to trigger your man's hero instinct. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I hurt my knee, but it's healing pretty fast. I think those daily pity parties, that's really working.